Welcome to the Middle Ages, a podcast hosted by two women in midlife navigating the wild, liberating, and often hilarious realities of this chapter of life. With a mix of insight, irreverence, and real talk, they explore everything from changing bodies and shifting identities to evolving relationships, work, and purpose. Because midlife isn't a crisis, it's a whole new beginning.
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Do I sound sexy?
You sound very sexy. I bet you even
Very
sounded sexier a couple of days ago.
Oh, you should have heard it. It was amazing. Yeah. So I got taken out this week, big time. For me to cancel 3 whole days of meetings
Yeah.
and work was not normal for me, and whatever it was took me out. So I'm
Did
happy
you
to
do
have
COVID test or no?
No, I mean, there's not a
Right.
lot of point in doing that anymore, but it's a huge disruption, and we're right in the middle of moving, and so, yeah, it sucked. And it's actually
Yeah.
kind of a good segue into our topic today because it meant that I had to put all my work on hold for 3 days, and it felt very confronting because I don't do that usually, and I'm so busy, and I've got lots on my plate, and the fears around, "Oh my goodness, what's gonna happen?" that normally would be there. I was kind of like, "You know what? We're not saving lives, right?" And I had to take the days off, and everybody just had to deal with it.
Yeah. We are saving one life. You're saving your life.
Yeah, I don't know what would have happened if I was forced to do anything. Like, I tried to have a
Well,
a meeting on Tuesday morning, and it was like
Mhm.
my it was with one of my team members, and she's like, "I think you just need to go to bed." And 'cause I was, like, staring at her just like I couldn't think of anything. I'm like, "Don't give me anything mentally difficult to deal with right now because it's just not there."
Yeah. I mean, really good news that you could take the time off. You did take the time off, and a few days later, you're feeling a little better, which is so good.
Yeah, incrementally, bit by bit, turned a corner yesterday, and as long as I
Yeah.
have my drugs, I'm good. Yeah. So
The reason I take the COVID test when I was sick a month ago and had COVID, and the reason I took the test is because, and this is not great, I can justify being in bed for 3 days because I have quotation COVID. And yet if it was just like, "Oh, I have a little bit of a flu or I have a little bit of a cold," I might not have been quite as kind with myself. So that's and then the reality is like you, I couldn't have gone to work if I wanted to.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
totally. So
Mm.
let's go. Let's dive into this topic. So work, that's
Mhm.
one of the things that
Mhm.
I have noticed in these mid years, new years, is that my
Middle
attitude
ages.
to middle ages is that my attitude towards work and my desire and need for my work to be meaningful and aligned with me has become increasingly important. And ironically, it's kind of part of the work that I do. And
Mhm.
so I want to talk about what work looks like at this stage in our lives.
Yeah, good. It's a great conversation. And you came up with that this morning, and I said, yes, let's run with this because it's something that's been really present for me for probably about 10 years since I turned 50. And maybe just a little bit before that, but certainly at a time in my life where I lost everything. I lost my, like, financially, my house, everything. And the one thing I held on to was my work, and my work called me back in. And when I went back in, and that was 12 years ago. When I got called back in and went back in, I went in with a really different metrics of what work means to me, and it
Mm,
was more around um, meaningfulness, purposeful leading, serving. Yeah, probably servitude was the biggest one. Serving a community, and then every time and since then, I can meet it with so much gratitude. And I feel like the first 20 years of my career, 20, 30, 25 years of my career, I probably was more just focused on just do the work, go home, do the work, go home, and didn't have that bigger picture of purpose and alignment and depth and relationships that I now have with my work.
Yeah, I would say, similar experience that worked for me was I was always striving for more, but it was more about what I could achieve as opposed
Mhm.
to what was sort of giving me that sense of purpose, the intention and the impact that I wanted to create. And that only
Mhm.
became something important to me probably in the last few years. Um,
Mhm.
and ironically, like I said, it's the work that I do with my clients, helping them
Mhm.
build businesses that are aligned to who they are as business owners. And, I wasn't doing the same thing for myself. A little bit, I would say, sorry, bit by bit, but that it really came to a point, I guess, in the last year or two that I had to really focus on who I was and what I wanted and how I wanted to work and then hold those boundaries. Because
Yeah.
why can't work be as fulfilling to me as everything else in my life needs to be? And,
Yeah.
to your point, like in the earlier years, everything was focused on just getting by and the purpose was to survive. Really, it felt like that. Like the purpose was, and so I made different decisions about my work and I also didn't know myself well enough. This is really, really, really topical for me right now because I'm actually just about to launch a program that is very focused, not on the like on the CEO side, the founder side of the alignment, as whereas I've always worked on the business alignment, and now I'm launching this program that's really digging into who you are, and I was just talking to a founder a couple days ago who had sort of found me, and he's got a $10 million business, and he is like, well, I'm being forced to make a move because of all these external circumstances. And what he was really realizing is that he didn't know himself. And I said, what? I
Mm.
asked him, I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you know yourself? And he said 6.5. And he's really
Yeah.
starting to awaken to this realization that any changes he's going to make, he hasn't really checked in with himself to see what he really wants, as opposed
Yeah.
to what the most obvious business decision would be. So this is really, really a timely conversation for me, and then all of the things I've been writing about and building inside this program are sort of front of mind. And so we have to do all this work before we ever figure out what work is. We have to figure out who we are as professionals,
Mhm.
as people, and build the work around that. And that's
Yeah.
like you can do that earlier in your career, but most of the time you're still trying to, bump around and try a bunch of things, and only then can you really understand who you are and what you want.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get it. I think when I was, in my 30s, 20s, 30s, and 40s, the different metrics that guided me were around productivity, ambition, achievement, financial acquisitions. And then I went through all of the metrics of that were downloaded to me from the echo of my conditioning of getting the starter house and then the middle house and then the bigger house and then the holidays and all of those things. And I kind of lost myself in that for a while. And it wasn't until I really started diving deeper into, yeah, my purpose, right? Really my purpose. Like, why am I here on earth? What's my contribution? What's my legacy going to be? And it has nothing to do with what I'm leaving behind financially. It's how I serve, how I'm remembered, how many hearts I've touched. So this metrics of productivity, ambition, achievement, financial acquisition, house acquisition, all those pieces. As we age, I feel like there comes a wisdom that we get to acquire. And I hope that this conversation really speaks to men equally as to women, because I think it's for both of us, it's for both genders, that as we age, we start to shift our relationship with work, and we start to dive a little bit more into depth and heartfelt heartfelt experiences and how to cultivate more meaningful relationships, and then how to deliver that and serve that into the world. I think that deepens as our inner landscape evolves. So that personal development piece of it, that understanding, and for me, I call it spiritual understanding. All of that really impacts the way that I show up for my work now.
Yeah, and it doesn't even mean like you need to change your job, but I think
Nope.
the way you look at your work is can change and can be impacted, and what it does for you. And, like, I'm the same way as you. Like, all through my life, there were ups and downs, and there were big challenges, and there were things going on. But the constant for me was my work, and I always came back to it. And I don't know if that's healthy or if that's for good or for bad, but it was
It's
always the
probably a
thing
blessing,
that,
to be honest. It's a
yep,
blessing. Yeah.
possibly, because, but I know I wrapped up a lot of identity in my work, but
Mm,
I don't know how not to, right? Um,
mm,
and that's because I've taken a lot of risks, and I've very carefully created work that I can do that I love to do. I really
yeah.
do. Like, I work a lot, and I was falling into that trap of working all the weekends. And as much as I was tired, it was it didn't feel like a burden because I just really like what I do. And I've given myself lots of playgrounds to play in for my work so that I have lots of variety and I get to try lots of things. But,
Mm,
you can only do that for so long, and when it starts to feel like a requirement to do it that much, that's when things had to sort of change. But, I do feel really, really grateful for what I've built, and for the ability to
mm,
do that. But I do think when you can know yourself and trust your intuition, and that's getting into that somatic piece again, where you don't think so hard about architecting it and rather you follow the flow. That's when you start to find the
mm,
work that really, aligns with who you are. And so,
yeah.
a question for you: have you changed your work in the last 10, 15
Mm.
years?
Yeah, very much so. Especially in the last 5 years, my work has become very integrated with my lived experiences and deeply aligned with my values as an integrated offering. So, I have two separate jobs. Let's call them two separate roles. One is a speech language pathologist, one is as a spiritual coach, mentor, mindfulness educator, all of those pieces. And now I have within me a sense of duty, obligation to be able to integrate those as I do my work. So I'm not, there was a time where I kept it very separate. I would go to a school and I'd be a speech language pathologist. I'd go to a yoga studio and I'd be a spiritual coach. And now I feel that I can integrate it, and I'm integrating it with more creativity, which is beautiful because that's the feminine flow that you talked about. I'm also finding that I'm attracting, like, oh my gosh, it is insanely, insanely abundant right now, the work that's coming to me. And all of the people that are coming to me as I align deeper with the integrated vision of who I am and how I want to deliver my work, the people that are coming to me are deeply aligned with what I can offer. And I don't have to work so hard. And I know you feel that
Mm,
too, Steph, with the work you do. I don't have to work so hard to be able to help create impact. And I love that because I don't want to work hard. I want to work smart, obviously. And there's times where I work a lot, and I know you do too. I have, and my work tends to be a little more seasonal. So I might work a lot, like 3 or 4 days a week for like 3 months, and then take a few weeks off, and then work another 3 months, take a few weeks off, work another 3 months, take a few months off. So my work's a little bit more cyclical that way. And I always know that I have time to nourish myself and to resource myself, even in the busiest of times. But I feel for me, it's been really finding that integration of the work that I do and the parts of me, right? I can be this super professional, neurologically trauma informed speech language pathologist and a spiritual coach at the same time. And as I do that, I'm serving something bigger than myself. I'm not stuck in this little box that I was educated to be in. I have stepped outside the box and I'm serving beyond the containment of the box to offer something into the world.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, you know, getting to know yourself again is so critical. And what I really need is the ability to constantly create and um, evolve and try new things. And so I've
Mm,
created a container where I can do all those things, but they all serve a bigger purpose. Like they all
mm,
serve to grow what I've already created. So,
mm,
it can be a double-edged sword, right? Because too much of that and you end up not moving in any one direction. But that's one of the things that I have learned is that I do need to focus and I do need to um, stick with something for a while
mm,
because the fruits of that labor start to evolve. Whereas if you're constantly changing and constantly, which I'm inclined to do because I like it, but if you're constantly changing, it's very hard to continue to grow something. And it's ironically the advice I give my clients as well is that, we need to let some things, because all of us entrepreneurs are all, freaking ADHD, change on a dime, and we're all optimists and what have you. And so my clients tend to be like that too. Oh, if it's not working, we got to do something else. And it's like, no, it can work, but we need to
mm,
give it some time and we need to learn
mm,
from it and we need to evolve it. So I think that's one of the bigger changes is that I got really clear on what I wanted. I've had this, vision for a business model for about 5 years, and I'm finally seeing it start to actually come to fruition. And what I needed was a partner, which is what
mm,
I've never wanted, right? I've always been the lone wolf. I've always been the person who does everything on their own. And then this year has been
mm,
all about partnerships and all about doing things with others. And that's really paid off. It's really been successful. So
mm.
I think the big lesson there is that we can evolve and that our
Yeah,
work, not everybody's an
yeah,
entrepreneur, but you still have
yeah,
some sort of agency over the work that you're doing
mhm,
and how you want
yeah,
that to look. And even if you're in a job, there's an opportunity for you to create there too, and for you to ask for what you want. And I think that's what this age is allowing us to do. And we've said that in a lot of other episodes is to be really clear on what we want and ask for that.
yeah. I read something, aging doesn't diminish us, it refines us. And with that refinement comes the opportunity to be able to make sort of this part of our lives, the Middle Ages and moving forward, less about what we do and more about who we are and how we contribute. And my greatest desire is that people are also accessing their joy and their creativity and their play and their filling their hearts and their souls. And I remember once doing a yoga teacher training, one of my students had a tattoo on her foot, and I've never forgotten it. And I've taught this to my kids. And the tattoo was, do what you love what you do. And I really like that because I'm aware, Steph, you and I are professionals and have had professional careers. And we've been, pretty successful in our careers. And then there are a lot of people when I go out to Home Depot and Save On and, Shoppers Drug Mart and different places, people are working a lot longer, perhaps for a lot less money and may not consider it a career. It's more of a job. So, how can those people not only if they can't do what they love, if it's not their first choice, if life has just taken them to their knees a few times and they haven't been able to get up, how can they learn to love what they do?
Yeah, and I think for some people listening, they might go, "Well, great for you. That's a privilege, right?" And
Yeah,
I'm just trying to get by, and I totally hear that
yeah,
as well. And
yeah.
that may feel like a luxury. In some ways, like I wasn't born with a golden spoon, and I certainly didn't. I certainly
Hmm.
worked my way to what I got, but I also, you know, I was really intentional about it, and I took a lot of
Yeah,
risks. And not everybody's in a position that can take risks, right? That can,
yeah.
you know, that has it hasn't always been easy. It has never been easy, to
Hmm.
be honest. But
Hmm.
that was just the way that I was wired, and I can't imagine doing it any other way. But, for those folks who don't have that tolerance or, don't have that desire, I understand how that can feel like a privilege and can feel like something unreachable. And so if you are someone who doesn't have the tolerance for the risk, or who doesn't feel they're in the position to create their own work and they have a job, how
Or
do
just
we
have never
then?
had the opportunities, really have never had the
Mhm.
opportunities, right?
Mhm.
Didn't have the opportunity to have higher education or to step in for whatever reason to those experiences. How
And there's
can
lots
they
of
learn to love what they
yeah.
do?
Yeah, and there's lots of responsibility that falls on everybody's plates, and so they, that sort of like keeps them where they are as well. But yeah,
Yeah.
how can you find that same, you know, I don't even want to say joy, or like that can be a bit of a reach, but how can you just find that same sort of satisfaction with where you are right now, wherever that is,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
the question.
I think it's all about seeing the impact that you have day to day in the relationships that you're building, which for somebody who works at Home Depot, the relationship might be the next client that comes in. And how
Mhm.
can I make their life easier? How can I greet them? How can I make a connection point with them? And I think if we focus on that, that do what you love what you do becomes more digestible. It becomes more palatable. It's possible. And I've often told my kids that very, very much like, do what you love, but there may come a time where you have to just love what you do. And my son, who worked at a grocery store for like a solid year, full time, like 12 to 9 p.m., like ridiculous hours for very little pay, I just had to remind him, love what you do. You have a purpose. You are greeting clients. You are doing meaningful work, even if it's stocking shelves. It's meaningful work. Somebody has to do it, and at the end of the day, you are getting a paycheck, and love that.
And there's a role for everything in our lives, like,
Yeah.
where we are at a certain time. I remember when I was in grad school, oh my Lord, there was a really high-end, beautiful furniture store, like housewares furniture store that, was right near where I lived, and I was like, I want to earn a little bit of money over Christmas because I'm in grad school, whatever. And my friend worked there. And so she got me a job there. And I thought, oh, this is going to be the best because I love furniture. I love, interior decor. And I loved, it felt like a really, upscale clientele. So it was only for like 2 weeks just to get over the Christmas season. And I thought this is going to be super fun. Probably the worst experience I've ever, like, I wanted to slip my wrists every day that I had to go in there, and
Mm.
and I couldn't enjoy it, and I I'm gonna give myself a little bit of grace here because part of that was the Christmas CD that they would play over and over and over again all day, which I couldn't stand. But for the
Uh-huh.
most part, I guess it was good to realize what I don't want, and I didn't enjoy a lot of pieces of it. What I did enjoy was talking
Yeah.
to the customers that would be shopping, except some of them were horrible. And I love to be talking to them and getting to know
Yeah.
them. Now, it didn't fit inside the mold of what these little shop managers had built their little fiefdoms around, and so that made things a little bit unpleasant as well. But
Mm.
yeah, oh boy, and I could have made that a much more enjoyable experience if I had turned my perspective in a different way. I think I was coming at it with too much ego and, um,
Yeah.
maybe, like, expectations that were unrealistic. And so, yeah, I mean, we can all be in positions that may not be exactly aligned with who we wanna be and all of that sort of thing, but I think you can find nuggets in every situation to help us understand why we're here right now and what it gives us. And maybe
Yeah.
that's the place to find alignment, right?
Yeah. And that sort of speaks to the wisdom that comes as we mature too. Like I had my jobs at, 19, 20, 21 that I don't know that I would say I had any enjoyment in them, but I do know now with the maturity that I have now that when I make purpose my anchor, work feels, and it doesn't matter how much work I've had that day, and it's like, oh my gosh, I have two more appointments, which happens many days. But when I can anchor in my purpose, it feels less like a demand and more like an offering or a contribution. And then
Yeah.
I always, and I know you do too, I always feel better at the end of the day. Like I feel like I have done good work. I feel like I've contributed. I feel like I've made a difference. And hopefully other people are receiving that as well.
One practice that I have and my partner and I do every morning is that we just send each other a little message that says, what's our intention for today? What
Mm-hmm.
is the affirmation that's going to get us through the day? And then what are the main things that we want to work on, right? What are the things we want to accomplish today? And I just think that intention, like there are days where it's just chock block full of meetings and there's nothing I can put on my to-do list because my to-do list is to just go to all my meetings, right? But there's
Yeah.
always an intention that I can sort of float over the top of the day. And that sort of draws me back to what did I want to do today? I wanted to move forward with, um, some initiative that I just want to progress that in some way. Or maybe my intention is that everyone I talk to feels like they got served today, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that little thing pieces it all together and makes my day feel
Yeah.
like it was meaningful and that there was some reason that I was going towards it. And I can ask myself if that happened with each experience that I had in the day. And most of the time it does. It's a yes. Another topic that kind of comes up for me too that I think is important in terms of how we work in this time of our lives is exactly that. Like, how are we working, and how do we go about work on a day-to-day basis? Again, keeping in mind that not all of us have the same situation, and not all of us have the same kind of work environment, but I think that the way that we work changes and we make different decisions about it. And I think it really matters because the way that we work is very attuned to like the way that we think and the way that we are as people and our personalities. And so, for me, doing umpteen different delivery tasks that are all very detail oriented is not the way that I like to work. And it's not just that it's a preference, it's that it's not really well aligned to the way that my brain works. I'm very big picture.
Mm-hmm.
I am, you know, if I could describe my best role, I'm the puppet master, right? I'm the puppet master that keeps an
Mm-hmm.
eye on everything because my superpower is that I can see the vision, I can create the vision,
Mm-hmm.
but I also can
Mm-hmm.
go right down to the bottom level and figure out how that needs to be executed. So what do you actually need to do to get there? And a lot of people are either here or they're either there. So being,
Mm-hmm.
my Myers-Briggs is a commander, and the
Mm-hmm.
commander is basically the bossy sociopath, right? But I actually really like people. So I'm good with people and I'm good with, moving people along. And I'm also really good at knowing how to move in a certain direction and steer the ship. So getting involved with doing like endless levels of detailed work and delivering things and writing up
Yeah.
reports, like that is about the farthest from what I should be doing. I actually really enjoy it sometimes. Like sometimes it's good for me to go and get into that level of detail and I can get really lost in it. But the way that we work, I think is super important for us now too, because it has to align with our energy and our mindset and what we know about ourselves and desire. And so I'm wondering if like, has that changed for you as well? What are the constraints that you've created around your work and the way that you work?
Mm. Wow. Constraints. The reality is I work more now than I probably ever have. And there's a part of me, like I mentioned earlier, that can flow with that, seeing the seasons that come through. So when it's rainy and cold outside, I work a lot. When it's sunny and dry, I play a lot. And, I'm so grateful that a lot of my work, especially a lot of my coaching work, I get to bring in a lot of the practices that help to keep me grounded and present. So I do meditation with my clients, I do breath work with my clients, and I can't do any of that for them without receiving it myself. So I think it's a very unique perspective that my work really fuels me quite a bit in that way. And I think what you mentioned around your setting your intention for the day, I mean, that's truly purpose. And purpose, if you lead with purpose, not productivity, you will be able to create the experience of your work that's really going to be in servitude for other people. There's a concept about intention plus emotion ends up, I don't know what it creates. Intention plus emotion creates like just joy um, and bliss and freedom to be who you are. So again, I want to acknowledge we're very fortunate that we're in a position to be able to do that. And for me, it's not all the time because I work part-time for the school system. So I'm at the school like from 9 to 3:30, and I have to sort of follow those rules. I'm not an entrepreneur in that environment, but I've been an entrepreneur for 30 more years. And that I get to choose and align very specifically the work that I want to do with the values that I feel very strongly. I try to do that in the school environment, and I imagine that there's a lot of teachers that may be listening as well, and people that work in hospitals, and people that are sort of like a 9 to 5 or 9 to 3 kind of job. And you can't go and do the work elsewhere. Here's where the work is. The work is brought to you, and you must deliver the work that's been given to you. And so, again, I'm going to go back to honor the relationships. Let your values lead you. Make it more about serving something bigger than yourself. So, Steph, that I don't think I've talked about this on the podcast yet. That last spring, I had an opportunity to go to Nepal and serve and work for almost 3 weeks with autistic children in autistic schools, as well as orphanages, as well as the keynote speeches. And that was such a beautiful reminder for me that I'm here to serve something bigger than myself. And the reason it was such a beautiful reminder is that I couldn't have curated that. I didn't plan that. When my friend said to me, Diana, I think you should go to Nepal, I said, well, I don't know. I want to go to Hawaii. That's what I was thinking. That was my plan. That was my vision. But I ended up
Take
following those
me.
little breadcrumbs. What's that? Take you. I'm planning
Take
on it. Let's
me.
go. Let's go. I'm looking at the sales now. So for me, service is one of the most profound sources of meaning for my life. And I do it through mentorship. I do it through community support. I do it through, let's call this humanitarian work, going to Nepal, and all the different opportunities that help to awaken my heart. So this is where my intention and my heart align. And it brings me so much joy as it reminds me that I'm here for something bigger. And I don't think I could have had that perspective 30 years ago. I didn't have that perspective 30 years ago. I didn't really understand how big that and how important that was to me 30 years ago. It's really been in the last like 15 years that's been in my field of awareness.
So I'm going to bring up something that's a little bit of a dichotomy for me. So we talk about, how to get work aligned. We're talking about finding a way to be of service and finding a way to, impact others. And at the same time, when we talk about our transitions into the Middle Ages, it's very much about coming back to yourself. And that is not a comfortable place for women. And women have been taught that we are only valuable if we're nice to others. That's why women have a hard time selling, why they have a hard time in sales and with money. And so I want to be cautious here by saying the way to feel good in your work is to serve others. And because what we're also trying to say is like, you get to take care of yourself now. And you can be a very valuable woman and human being, even if you're not doing everything for other people. Like, I can't tell you how many women I work with where their biggest holdback is that they are worried about not being nice to others or being, they are a people pleaser, that women are far more people pleasers than men are. And so in this area, I want to be really clear that when we talk about the work that we do, it is not about laying yourself down and just giving it all up to other people. It's more about finding the pieces in the work that you do that are in connection with others. How can we connect with others, and how can we connect the work that we do to the outcomes that other people are enjoying from it? I don't have a single cell in my body that is a people pleaser. Like, I just wasn't born that way. And it's just, I might be in the exception to the rule there, but
Mhm.
it does matter to me that the work that I do has incredible impact for others, but not at
Yeah.
the risk. I will always prioritize being happy in the work that I do before I prioritize serving others. It was interesting because I had a long chat with my partner the other day because he does a lot of work around purpose. And I said, "What's mine? Like, what, you know me, what's my purpose?" And he goes, "Everything you do is about long-term impact and having impact on others." And he's like, "That is so your purpose is to develop long-term relationships and have impact in those relationships." And I was like, "Oh, that's so
Mhm.
interesting that that's how you see me," because
Mm.
I've been conditioned for so long to think that, serving others means that I'm giving up some part of myself.
Yeah, so
And
sometimes we have to release these old identities and belief
yeah,
systems, right?
yeah.
We have to release the belief systems. I mean, people pleasing, by the way, you said it's mostly women. To be honest, I actually work with a lot of men who are carrying the people pleaser,
Mm,
and it's tearing them apart as they're trying to get into work and they're trying to navigate families, and they're typically in their 30s. And so that is just our conditioning, people. We don't have to be like that. We can have boundaries and still do meaningful work. I do say no around work. I do have to set boundaries around my time, when I can take calls, when I will respond to emails, things like that, because otherwise work will become depleting for me. And if it's depleting for me, then I will never be able to deliver and serve the impact that I want in the world. So I do think that people pleasing, the hustler, the endless caretaker, like all those outdated identities, we've talked about them in other episodes. We have to look at that. I mean, we can't change something till we see it. So we have to look at it as an invitation and realign with who we are becoming in the Middle Ages and how we want to bring ourselves forward in the world to be able to create space for work that's more authentic and fulfilling.
and so, maybe this is a good topic for our next episode. We always seem to come up with the topic for our next episode nearing the end of the current one, but I think that that's a huge topic is breaking away from our obligations and
Mhm.
our ideas that we need to be building our lives around serving others
Yeah.
and building a new identity that allows us
Mhm.
to serve others without losing ourselves.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
That feels
And
like
some of
a
that's going to definitely drip into our work, because the way we do one thing is typically the way we do everything. And so
mhm.
if I'm working with somebody and they're really feeling low motivation and low contribution in their work, they're probably feeling that way in their life outside of work as well. And it's really important for us to have a balance. There's a pie, and we have relationship, and we have work, and we have personal care, and we have contribution. And like, we have to have a complete pie. We have to serve. We have to serve from a place of wholeness. If we're serving from these fractured pieces of ourselves, it will only deplete us, and it will never be the most meaningful opportunity that we have. We have to serve from a full pie before we can deliver our work.
And I think one of the other traps that we get into is having to make everything either good or bad. And one of the
Mhm.
things I've
There's no
learned
good
is
or bad. There's no good or bad. Good or bad are just concepts that some patriarchal concepts that somebody taught us one time. This is good, this is bad. Anger is bad, joy is good. It's like, no, no, it's just different spectrums.
well, and from my perspective, I actually look at this from the concept of judgment versus curiosity, right? So the
Mm,
whether something
yeah.
is good or bad, um, it's less so about the judgment and more about what that how that fits into our overall flow. And so I think the concept I'm trying to point out here is that we have this tendency to want to have judgment, to want to fit something either in this bucket or that bucket, and then we go into these long cycles of judging ourselves for whether there was a good or a bad outcome. And it's one of the most powerful concepts I teach my business owners because man, when you're an entrepreneur, you got to be ready and willing to accept that everything's always in flow, and that
Mhm.
if you spend all your energy on judgment on whether something is good or bad, then you waste a lot of that energy that could be going towards your next step. So something happened. Maybe it was what you expected. Maybe it wasn't what you expected. Great. Now we have good information, right? We have more
Yeah.
information. So there's this concept of wanting to make everything good or bad. Um,
Yeah.
so it feels like a good place for us to kind of tie up the conversation right now, because I think that would be a really great topic for our next episode is around how we move into that place that we want to be, and lose this need to have um, that need to change the identity around serving, right?
Yeah.
um
How do we release
what's
the old identities that no longer serve us or the true expression of our work, but also of our lives? I have a question for you. And then
mm,
I want to bring up something really quickly. So I'll bring up the quick thing first, and then I'll ask you the question. And the quick thing is, did you hear that Miss Mexico became Miss Universe? Did you hear the controversy around that?
no, did I
So
maybe?
it's kind of related to, authenticity and knowing who you are and aligning with your values. There was a situation, it was in Thailand, the contest was in Thailand. And sometime last
Yes.
week, there was a situation where a male host, I don't know what his title or role was, basically literally called her out. They were all sitting in the audience and he called her out. Miss Mexico is a dumbhead, he said, and
Yeah,
she must leave. And I was so proud of the women that got up and left with her.
they all stood
So
up and
proud.
left.
Like, that's sisterhood, right? That's so important. No woman deserves to hear that. No man has the right to say that to a woman. And I'm so excited and happy for her that she won Miss Mexico. And whether some people are saying, well, it's controversial, she won it because of this controversy and they tried to write it to make it better. And other people are saying, no, she deserved it. I don't care. I want her to wear that crown. I think we're all queens. I think we all deserve to wear our crowns proudly. We all are unique and have different offerings in this world, and we all should be applauded for who we are. I just really wanted to add that for this context in this audience.
Yeah, I watched the video of it. It was awesome. Like the women are,
Yeah,
women are, especially, I just find that institution to be all a little bit weird and gunky, right?
totally
But
weird.
yeah,
Totally weird.
but
Yeah,
to be for and it's very much still been an environment of submission, right? And to have all those women standing up and saying, no, I don't think so. Yeah, that was
yeah.
really empowering and awesome to watch. Um, I have
Okay,
one last. Okay,
question.
and then I have a question for you, and then we'll
And
finish
we
up.
may not answer it today. We may carry it over
Okay.
into next week. What is your legacy? What legacy do you know you long to leave? And so maybe
I
maybe you know it, maybe we park it.
Yeah, I think there's a legacy that's really close to me that is in my um, very, very immediate sort of sphere of influence, and it is to give both my children the understanding and the tools to be independent thought leaders,
Mm,
that they primarily pursue their happiness, and that they have the
mhm.
independence and the agency to do that, and to understand that
Yeah,
they have the power to do that, right? And so, some of that comes intuitively from just being, and some of that is very intentional in terms of what I want to model for them and what I want to teach them. Because if they have those tools, they can do and pursue whatever they want in their lives. I never want them to feel trapped or under anyone's thumb.
yeah,
Bigger picture,
yeah.
I would
Beautiful.
say that the legacy that I wanna leave is that almost the same thing, but for a greater population of women, to ensure that they learn that they can have agency in their work, right? That they can have agency, because the way that we've structured our society is that we're disintegrating family and connection and this makes me sound like a Christian nationalist. Not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying that, a lot of the ills that come from social development are because we don't get a lot of connection anymore with the people close to us, because we have to work and we've got these financial obligations and we've got, other obligations and all of this stuff, and we're getting disconnected. And I honestly think that entrepreneurship is a way of curing social ills. And so I want to give women the ability to be able to be successful and work in ways that really fulfill them, and that allow them to fulfill the impact that they know they want to make.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
All right.
Love that.
Let's end there. That sounds like a good place for us to end.
Yeah.
And next week we've got our topic, and you and I are going to take off tonight and go eat some delicious food made by the young people in our high school. And it's going to be
For the fundraiser.
Fundraiser. Yep. For these.
And today I have to. Yeah, today's my son's 19th birthday. So I want to call that out, because as you're speaking about your legacy for your children, I want my kids to have an imprint of possibility, of conscious, heart-led leadership, and of kindness and compassion in the world. And I know that with that, they can do anything. And my son, man, we have some great conversations now about what all of that means. We can talk about it another time. And I want to say happy birthday, Ben.
And boy, has it ever been cool to watch him develop over the last couple of years.
Right?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the most, I was never one of those people who was like super maternal, who was like, oh, I can't wait to have kids. I didn't think I even wanted kids for a very long time. And, I'm still not sure that I do. No, I have these two amazing teenagers, and they're amazing for different reasons. But it's really, really fascinating to watch them develop, right? To watch them grow and take in all the things. And so we've entered into this really interesting new phase. My son has just moved back in with me, and we've just moved this week. Like, it all came up really quickly, but he had indicated that he would like to live with me again. And now he's decided he's living with me 100%, like full time. So all of a sudden now I have both my kids with me, and I'm watching him. And the last few years have been really challenging with him. And I'm watching him just turn a corner and become this new person, and our interactions with each other. And that's what I needed. I needed to be around him a lot more than I was, because he hasn't lived with me for 2 years. And I'm watching the impacts of our constant communication and the way that I'm signaling to him that, I want to steer him in this direction, and he's responding to it. And it's been really, really neat to watch. So I think, like, even watching your kid grow over a couple of years is just like, it's fascinating. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. All righty. Well, I will see you tonight for dinner. Thank you. For anybody watching, remember that we'd love to get your feedback. We'd love to get your suggestions, topics that you'd like us to talk about as it relates to the Middle Ages.
And leave us a comment in terms of what you thought about the episode today and any other episodes. And we will see you again next week.
Thanks for listening to The Middle Ages. If you loved this episode, follow the show, leave a review, and share it with someone who's rewriting the rules of midlife too. Because around here, we believe midlife isn't the end of anything. It's the start of everything. See you next time.